Welcome to the Falcons Fanatic Podcast, your dirty birds every weekend. Welcome back to a Falcons Fanatic Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Lucky Roberts, coming to you in one of the most frustrating, disappointed states I've ever been. Going into a Falcons game, I'm a little bit under the weather, so you might hear that in my voice a bit. And I guess that reflects how the game went today. The Falcons lose to the Cardinals 25-23. And I'm just going to start off by saying Arthur Smith needs to go. And that's something that I realized while watching this game, is that he doesn't have a future with this Falcons team. And, I think he's tied himself to a sports car with two 8-year-olds driving it. And the two 8-year-olds are the QBs he continues to thrust into that position, whether it be Mariota, whether it be Tyler Heineke, whether it be Ritter. It's just an 8-year-old driving a supercar. It's not going to work. And he continues to tie himself to him. And the second 8-year-old is him and his play calling and his decision making. And it's not tenable. And he doesn't have a future with the Falcons. And that's something that I think he realized as well. He was very downtrodden in his press conference today after the game, and I hope Arthur Blank, he realizes this, and I hope we fire him as soon as possible. I am sick and tired of watching this same Falcons team for the past however many years. It hasn't just been with Arthur Smith, it's been towards the end of Dan Quinn's tenure as well, where this team is just so goddamn mediocre, and we play the easiest schedule every single year, and yet we still end up 7-10. I mean, we're 7-10 for the last 5 years or something, and it's just not fun. Every single season I look ahead and I'm like, oh, I can't wait. Falcons football. I've been missing this since December, since early January if we're lucky, and I get so excited, so hyped up. I'm like, I don't even care. I'm just going to watch the football and support my team. But this is disappointing. And I'm seeing real people on Twitter, saying that they're no longer supporting the team. And that's what kills me as a fan, is just look around and see all these downtrodden fans giving up. And I'm never going to give up. I'm in it for life, and I know that. But it's really disappointing to see, because I can see a little bit of myself in them, and I can see a little bit of just the disappointment and just how much the fans give for this team, and for it to be just one of the worst franchises ever, and continues to disappoint and continues to be mediocre, but not mediocre as, the good teams. The Cowboys will tell you they're mediocre. Oh, we're such a you guys made the playoffs. I would love to make the playoffs. If I made the playoffs every season, I would be sitting back, I'd be crying with this Falcons team, because, they don't know what it's like to be 4-6 every season, and they don't know what it's like to have Taylor Heineke and Desmond Ritter throwing your passes. They don't really understand what it's like to be, a fan of one of these teams. They're a winning franchise, and it's just disappointing. And you have so much hope, and that's what it kills you on. And you see the same cycle of hope with this Falcons team. You see a cycle throughout the season where we have our ups and our downs, and then we're our ups and our downs, but it always ends on a down. And you see it happen in games where this Falcons team, okay, well, we're down 3, a little bit down. This is a 1-8 Cardinals team we need to be beating. We need to be beating. We win this game, we're top of the NFC South again. But I was saying this, in the third or fourth quarter. It doesn't matter, what happens in this game, win or lose. The outcome is we played like horrible. We played equal to the Cardinals, who were 1-8. I don't care who their quarterback is. I don't care if it's Kyler Murray or goddamn Joe Biden. But we can't be losing these games. And it happens over and over and over again. We've lost 3 in a row. 3 tight games against teams that are bad. Against teams that are, if we're a real team like the Steelers, they're not a good football team, but they win. They find ways to win. We find ways to lose. We've lost 3 in a row. We've lost 4 of our last 5. Like, it's just so disappointing. A bad loss against Washington, and looking back as well. In the last, however, let's see here, 8 games. The last 8 games were 2-6, 6 losses. I can't continue to watch this and get hope for it and let it bleed into my regular life, because it's too much, man. I'm not going to make myself unhappy, and I mean, I am, and that's what I'm doing. But it just sucks, and I know it's not how every other team feels, and we're supposed to have some success, and we're supposed to have something to be happy about, but season after season, you hold on to hope of Bijan Robinson, hope of Kyle Pitts, hope of Drake London, just replicating something that we saw from Julio Jones or we saw from Mike Vick, but you just don't, and it doesn't come back. And despite how good Bijan was today, and I don't think this is one of his best games, you have hope for it, but it's just not something you see. And you see, this is also another thing. I think this Falcons team is good, and if we get a new QB who's decent, and if we get a new head coach who can call plays, I think this Falcons team is going to be really good next year. I really do, and they will disappoint me, and I'm comfortable with that. But this just shows the difference a good QB makes. Like Kyler Murray, this Cardinals team, they're playing James Conner. I don't know the last time James Conner was a good running back. I mean, it was like 3 years ago when he first burst onto the scene. They're running with Trey McBride and Rondale Moore. These aren't football players. These are university, college football players. It's just not. This is not NFL football, and we're losing just because they have Kyler Murray. And we continue to neglect the fact that we need a good QB. And this offseason is so important. And I pray and I have full trust in Terry Fontenot to make a right decision and a good one about this Falcons team going forward with a QB. I do believe the players that he's drafted, especially the players he's signed, are good players, and I do see that. I just think they're poorly utilized, and I believe in Terry, but Arthur Smith needs to be fired because he obviously has no idea what he's doing. Just game after game, play after play, and I'm sick of it, and the fans are sick of it too. And there's gonna be revolt after revolt, and it just And I was telling you earlier about this cycle of excitement and hope, and then depression and sadness. And it started out 2 wins, great comeback against Green Bay, loss against Detroit, loss against Jacksonville, blowout. A win against Houston, comeback, we're 3-2. Look at that. Loss against Washington, that was a tough one. We beat Tampa Bay, we're 2-0 in our division. And this, that Houston and that Tampa Bay game, we're 4-3, and we're looking good, and we're leading our division. And you look around, nobody's near us. Oh my God. Nobody's near us, and you just think, man, how can we screw this up? We have 3 games up and coming against 3 poor teams that are not good at football, and we lose all 3. Our defense that was so impressive to early in the season, and what was so impressive about our defense was that it continued to be clutch. It would, stop them on 4th and 1, and it would earn us points. But now we just let the floodgates through, and they're scoring exactly when we don't need them. And it started in that Houston game when we let C.J. Stroud just walk down the field and really put pressure on this Falcons team. But, and I think this defense is good. We'll need new young legs, and that was always the issue, was the injuries. If you sign a bunch of old players, are they going to be fresh and they are going to be able to play? And Arthur Smith, I think, really recognized that, to his credit, and he didn't play any of them in the preseason, trying to save their legs. And they played great earlier on in the season, but, they get injured. And all of a sudden, you're looking at a defensive line with Contavious Street, and you're looking at a defensive line with Taquan Graham. And you're like, where did Onyemata and Grady Jarrett go? I mean, two of the best interior rushers, pass rushers in the league. And you look back, and now you have Taquan Graham and Contavious Tree, which, for all I know today, they just blocked 2 passes on the first drive, and that's all that happened. I mean, like, Jesus Christ. And it was a poor performance for many different players. Richie Grant didn't have a great game. You know, I think Jesse Bates, Caden Ellis, Nate Landman, AJ Terrell, those guys had good games. Everybody else on the pass rush, everybody else linebacker-wise, in the secondary, disappointing game, and we let this one slip through our fingers. But it's something I thought about, and I'm never happy with the Falcons' loss. Never. Absolutely not. And I'm not happy now, but at least now it forces some choices to be made and decisions to be made about Arthur Smith, and I think it's sort of realizing, and like I said, I hope Arthur Blank sees this. He's not the future coach. And you can let him hang around and throw him a pity party, but if you know he's not the future coach, and we know he's not, don't let him stick around. Let's get some new blood in here, and let's see if we can find somebody who's actually going to make a difference for the future of this football team. I'm sick of it, and I'm sure the players are as well. You know, let's get a coach who can utilize some of these young players and can string together something. It's just disappointment. I need to stop getting hope. But like I said, I think AJ Terrell had a great game. Jesse Bates, Richie Grant got burnt so many times. That's what lost us this game. And I think the turning point in this game, it was the Falcons were on the 20-yard line, and they were down by 5. And we had the ball on the 20-yard line. It was just an injury to Taylor Heineke. Ritter got put in, and we sort of ran the ball 3 or 4 times in a row, as Arthur Smith loves to do after a quarterback gets thrown in. And I'm not always against it. Jesus Christ, I just looked at our receiving stats. Oh my God. Anyway, I'll get to that eventually. That's horrible. And, so you look at what are we going to do? It's 4th and 1. Bijan's just got a bunch of rushes. So has Tyler Algier. And we're on 4th and 1. Early on in this drive, on 4th down, we did a QB sneak. And it worked out. Let's do it again. And I don't hate the decision, but I hate the player he's putting. I hate the decision to put the ball in the hands of Desmond Ritter. And he slips, and he extends, and he's just a couple inches short. And if we kick a field goal on that possession, man, that's a win. And maybe I'm talking to you differently. I know I'm not. I'm still talking about how we know Arthur Smith is in the future, but maybe I'm talking with a little bit of enthusiasm. Another thing I wanted to talk about was this Atlanta receiving core. A receiving core full of talented players like Drake London, Kyle Pitts, players we've just brought in like Scotty Miller. I don't know why it says Scott Miller on this sheet right here. And Van Jefferson. Players we had some hope for. We gave up stuff for them, and we're not using them. So I would love, you guys at home, who had the most receptions on this team, and what was that number? You think, oh, of course, it's Drake London and it's Kyle Pitts. They had the most receptions, and you're right. They both had 3 receptions between the both of them. I mean, they each had 3 receptions. And they each had 3 receptions, leading the team in receptions, both of them, for 36 yards and 30 yards, for a total of 94 passing yards. I thought we took strides in our passing offense. Clearly, we haven't. Taylor Heineke, the best things he could do today was running around. Best things Desmond Ritter could do was running around. They both had 30 yards each. Sorry. Taylor Heineke had 34 yards. Desmond Ritter had his touchdown. And we carried the ball 41 times to 21 passing attempts. And to start this game, Bijan Robinson was handed the ball, I think, twice in a row. And I was thinking in my head, the madman Arthur Smith is totally going to hand the ball off again, because he's realized the writing on the wall. And he's like, Well, you know what? You're going to get what you want. I'm going to give the ball more to Bijan. And, Bijan played fine. You look down this roster, the only players who played fine today, who actually played a good, maybe, Bijan Robinson, and you look on the defense and you say Nate Landman. Maybe AJ Terrell, maybe Jesse Bates, maybe Caden Ellis. They played fine. Who played well? Bijan Robinson, Nate Landman. That's it. That's all. That's the list. So disappointing. You have 53 guys on a roster. And, Cordero Patterson, after his outburst on Twitter earlier this week, he has 3 rushes for 13 yards. I could have told you that, having an outburst like that on Twitter is not actually going to succeed in getting himself some more carries. He was fine, though, in his rushes. Algier, 9 carries, 31 yards. I don't know what, I do know what people see in Algier, but the way he's been used this year compared to last year, it's night and day. And I've talked about this at length on this podcast before, but we're not getting him head of steam, Tyler Algier. And I think teams sort of figured out how to defend this outside zone, pistol outside zone run that we just fed off last season for game after game of 100 yards for, whoever was carrying it, whether it be Patterson, whether it be Algier. And this year it's a lot more. Let's hand the ball off in a similar sort of thing, but the only player who's going to be able to make something out of it is Bijan Robinson because he's just that good. He's just that good. Even still, though, 22 carries, 95 yards, that's just that's an average rush at running backs. If he's going to get 22 carries, that's how many yards he's going to get. It's not something that is supposed to be our backbone. Like, we can't survive off of it, and we can definitely not survive off of the passing attack today. And to be honest, I'm surprised we even scored as many points as we did. But the scoring outputs is always not enough, and it's always fine. But it's never we scored 40 points in one game, and it will never be we scored 40 points in one game because we cannot score 40 points in one game, but we're always scoring 23. And when we're scoring 23, the Cardinals have 25. And we score 28, Minnesota has 31. We score 23, Tennessee has 28. And so, looking ahead, this Falcons team is sort of at a crossroads. Next week, it's a bye, and the week after that, we play the New Orleans Saints, the Aints. And if we win that game, we may actually be leading the NFC South, depending on how other games go. And I don't expect to be. I'm sure the Buccaneers will win next week, or New Orleans will win next week, or something of the two, and we'll be stuck third or worse, but third or second or something. But we're at a crossroads, and I think, we can, if we want to, fully tank this season. And I think the players are prepared to do so, especially if Arthur Smith continues to be the head coach. If Arthur Smith is the head coach for the Saints game, we will lose that game. The players do not want to play for him no more. He knows that. They know that. They're done. Please, Arthur Blank, realize that. Get ourselves an interim head coach or something. We will lose against the Saints. And I am not prepared to lose against the Saints after losing 3 in a row to horrible teams, to lose to another horrible team. My mental state is not prepared for that. We cannot. Please fire Arthur Smith. That's why I am so eager for him to be fired, because I only see that going one way, and I see that as a loss because the players don't want to play for Arthur Smith no more. But, it'll be nice to have a bye week and regroup, more my mental state than their playing state. It'll be nice. I thought something that was pretty funny was Bijan Robinson on punt return today. I thought that was pretty interesting. Another interesting thing is that this Falcon team sucks. And we're not going to be good. And that's why I think, we have to think about tanking. Because if we finish 7-10 or 9, it's going to take a lot more to trade up. And I don't want to give up an arm and a leg. And I think if we tank, that's something we can do. And maybe that is the decision that Arthur Blank will make by keeping Arthur Smith in this head coaching spot. He'll be able to. He knows that we're going to lose against the Saints, and he doesn't care how the fans think. And I've thought in the past that he does care, and I'm sure he does. He's, the stuff that he's done with the food pricing. Yeah, it's good, but I just can't handle that. But let's move on to some cheerier news. Let's go around and see other scores around the league. I'll be right back. So we're back looking around the NFL. We had some games that were very close. One of them was the first one opening this window, Colts versus Patriots. This one in Frankfurt, the last of the overseas games this season. And it was the opposite of a barn burner. I was going to say an barn burner, but I don't think that's really a word. Probably not. The Colts win 10-6. Patriots throw an interception to lose. I think this might be the end for Bill Belichick as a Patriots head coach. We'll have to see. Lots of disappointment coming from them and their end as well. The Colts win 10-6. Not a very interesting game. The Texans win 30-27, and it was another, end of game beautiful plays from C.J. Stroud, some interceptions from the Bengals going their way as the Texans take it, and they win that, improves them to 5-4, and that's the same record that the Bengals have. And all of a sudden, this Texans team, who everybody was looking at like crazy, giving up what they gave up to move up for a C.J. Stroud, they're looking around, and all of a sudden, the Texans are 5-4, and they're going to be a good team. And, that just shows how valuable picking up a player like a good quarterback can be. We move to the Saints-Vikings game, and once again, Josh Dobbs showing himself to be really good quarterback. And I think people saw this with the Cardinals earlier on in the season, where they were just staying in these games that they were not supposed to be in. They weren't supposed to be in today's game either. But Josh Dobbs continues to be good, and the Vikings beat the Saints, improved to 6-4, 27-19. And the Saints are asking themselves the same question. And this is the only silver lining for the Falcons this week, is that the Saints lost to the same man that the Falcons just lost to in worse fashion. So hopefully, this proves that the Falcons are better than the Saints and will somehow sneak a win, but I doubt that. And I think the emotions for this team are cooked. Next game, Steelers-Packers. Steelers continue to just win slightly against the worst teams in the league and then lose to the best teams in the league. They win 23-19 defense. They stand on it. They score just enough points to win it. Good performance. Packers season is done. Buccaneers-Titans. Another team the Falcons lost to, the Titans, but the Buccaneers beat them 20-6, which is just total domination, and how the Falcons should have won that game. That was a tough one. Falcons, Will Levis walking all over us. But Buccaneers improved to 4-5, jump over the Falcons in the standings, and they're going to be a team to contend with if we are even thinking about still making the playoffs. 49ers, Jaguars, one that coming into it, you would have thought it would have been a close game. 34-3 is the score. Instead of that, it's 49ers winning. Brock Purdy had 3 touchdowns. They snapped their 3-game losing streak, and they're back on to business. Jaguars, after a winning streak, start their own losing streak. Both very good teams. It's too bad it wasn't a very close one, but a close one that was between two very good teams. The Browns and Ravens. This one was back and forth throughout the fourth quarter. Browns putting up 16 to the Ravens 7 in the fourth, just edging out by 2 points, and they improved to 6-3. Ravens now 7-3. A very, very close game back and forth. Browns defense, it was something that they really thrived off of earlier on in the season, but now both teams of these are defensive-minded squads, you would have thought. It's an offensive barn burner, and the Browns get the last little edge. Lions, Chargers. Chargers and Lions. If this game was played last year or 2 years ago, you would have thought this would have been a Chargers domination. Lions sneak out with a win. Chargers are having their own head coach questions. I think they need to have a change. But this was another very high-scoring matchup between two very potent offenses. So last couple of games here, we have the Giants and Cowboys, exactly what you would have thought. Cowboys 49, Giants 17. Not else really much to say other than Dak killed me in fantasy this week. And finally, the Seahawks versus the Commanders. Seahawks win. It was very tight. Seahawks are now 6-3. Commanders 4-6. Another team that the Falcons lost to. But such is life. Seahawks win 29-26, eking out one. Commanders now 4-6, and that's going to wrap it up for the week. And so I thank you all for listening. Very appreciated. I'll ramble as long as you guys want. You can follow me on Twitter, do whatever you want to do, and I am very thankful. So thanks for listening, and have a break on the bye, do what you want to do. I've said this the last couple of weeks after these losses, and I continue to say it. Take some time for yourself. Hopefully, we'll get back with a strong win against the Saints. September 26th, 2 weeks from now. And that's pretty much all I can hope for. So thanks for listening. I'll be back in 2 weeks from now, rejuvenated and excited, hopefully after a Falcons win. Thanks for listening.